Hello, my name is Marina. I'm the founder of the GBTH Project, a concept gallery in Second Life. I am joined here by Tommy Bruce for our first video with a short introductory talk about his latest exhibition, Real Problems, which will be displayed at the GBTH due to the extraordinary circumstances of the outbreak of the COVID-19. Tommy is an MFA photography student at the University of New Mexico, and Real Problems is his master's thesis exhibition. In Real Problems, Bruce explores the blurring boundaries between the in real life and virtual worlds through a new series of self-portrait, video, and live performance works. These works utilize Bruce's fursona, Atmos, a white-tailed deer, as primary subject. Atmos comes from Bruce's long-standing artistic interest in the internet-based subculture known as the furry community. Also present we have Michael Fowler, an interdisciplinary designer based in Vancouver, Canada, and resident in Second Life since 2006. Michael is also responsible for introducing Tommy and I have asked him to join us for this talk to have a better understanding of the furry subculture since it's strongly present in both of his lives.
Thanks for having me, Marina, and thank you, Michael, for your help and getting this event organized.
Yeah, first of all, it's been very exciting, and I'm super grateful it's unfolding, and really happy that we could all connect and make this possible. I think I'm mostly excited about this in that I personally never see a lot of furry artwork in the fine art world that's due to a few reasons, in that maybe sometimes intentionally left out of that, or it's largely seen as something that doesn't belong in a white wall environment. And I think you and I in our practices are challenging that.
I guess what else I would add is just that I find it an interesting kind of lemonade out of lemons situation to be able to exhibit this work in Second Life. The exhibition in the first place was kind of built around this anxieties, the kind of the double meaning of real problems as being real problems in the world and problems becoming real. Thinking of the problems becoming real coming from this subcultural perspective of the furry community, which thinks about or explores alternate persona. And it's, kind of ironic in a not funny way to have this exhibition that's having all these anxieties about problems in the world kind of be canceled by a pandemic. But within all that, it's been interesting to figure out how to move this exhibition into a virtual space. And I'm pretty excited to see that it, continues to work and I think still makes sense.
It's absolutely my pleasure to be able to host Real Problems and that the GBTH came as a solution on these challenging times. Both of your works and Second Lives are around the furry subculture, which is often target of misunderstanding and prejudice, being associated with Disney-like anthropomorphic avatars with huge genitals attached. I even had my first contact with furries through Second Life because they weren't allowed on some sims I used to visit. I think this is a great opportunity to have a better idea about this community, so I would like to ask you guys, what is furry?
Great question. I think kind of an endless one. So to expand on my background a little bit more, been a furry since I was 14, I think is kind of about where I mark it. And I've been making work as an artist with and about the furry community since I was 18. So that was about 2010. So it's been about a decade now. And so I have gotten a lot of questions, or it's always the first question of what is this? And I think that one of the things about furry community is that I think it is kind of hard to find a center to it. And the reason why people want to be a furry, I think, is kind of hard for people to see at first. So I think that ends up leading people to this kind of hyper focusing on the aspect of sexuality within the community, or like the prolific explicit imagery that you can find online. I think it's easy for people to see, oh, there's a part of it that's about sex. I understand sex to be an important part of my and people's lives generally. That's what this is about. When I think it's kind of like a facet of a much more complicated object. The thing that another way that I describe the community is it's similar to a fandom, but not quite the same as one. So take, for example, Trekkies who like Star Trek. Trekkies have a canon of media to refer to, right? They have all of the Star Trek series, to say like, this is what happens in the Star Trek universe, so that kind of orients their relationship to the fandom. The furry community, in comparison to that, doesn't have a canon or a gold standard, at least. Furry is always incorporating different pieces of media into its canon, so it's constantly changing in shape. So Second Life is one way that some furries, kind of have their full experience, in Second Life. Others might have their entire experience in costuming at conventions. Others might, just illustrate. And a lot of that is also whenever someone makes something, like identifies or creates themselves in the furry community, there's not really anything that people can compare it to say, oh, it's not furry because it doesn't look like this. Other than, this kind of vague canon of relating to cartoony animal characters, which is really broad. I mean, cartoony isn't even part of that. Some people, that doesn't necessarily have to be a part of it. Smoopa, any thoughts?
You can compare this to anime cosplayers, but like you said, a lot of their content is largely from other people. It's rarely, or video game conventions where people create costumes out of their favorite characters. But in furry, it's completely, the world building is the onus is on each single person. Sometimes that overlaps. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I love about it, and what makes it a little bit hard to understand, because there's no standard of it that's, it's immeasurable in a lot of ways. And also it's one of the few bastions that hasn't been, corporately co-opted. And I think it's slowly, there's been some attempts by Converse, for example, to kind of appropriate furry as a marketing tool. But the, commerce within furry is self-contained. And I think if you want to compare it to a fandom, it's the only fandom where, to my knowledge, that's the case.
Yeah. And that's, I think the other way to kind of complete that, comparison is that, what the fact that the characters that we are creating are, you might have some people who base their character off of a piece of media that they like, Zootopia or Lion King or something like that. But by and large, the characters that we're fans of in the furry community are characters that we make ourselves, in a sort of way of idealizing ourselves. And I think that is where it starts to cross over into kind of an identity culture, and one that is more about a person's subjectivity, the way that you relate to the world, or the way you place yourself in the world. And, obviously, I mean, there are some furries who truly feel, dysmorphic, but I think for a lot of us, I guess I can speak for myself personally, that being a furry is more about kind of a rejection of the real world, if I can, like speak as an artist and speak politically. I think to be a furry to me is also for me about saying like, I don't really agree with the way our world works. And so by substituting, by having a self that doesn't exist in that world, it's a little bit about kind of suggesting another way of relating to the world, or another world that we haven't yet created. So that's where it starts to be, to me, relate to kind of queerness and kind of social deviance.
I think for myself, I think, there's seeds planted by media when you're younger that leads you to this point of being like more. There's a precedent, especially built in like cartoons and children's films and stuff, and I think some people do direct copy characters from that, but it's mainly the foundation that you would build a character off of, in the sense of forming like an extension of the self, or your persona can be characters or animals that you enjoy or you feel more accurately represent who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. I think kind of similarly for me, my character came from kind of an interest in embodying the characteristics of the animal. So for me, that, Atmos is a white-tailed deer. I'm from Pennsylvania, which the Pennsylvania state animal is a white-tailed deer. And I also grew up in central Pennsylvania, in a college town, but surrounded by a lot of hunting culture. And as a kid and an adult, I kind of am. I think of my queerness as a sort of against masculinity, and I don't know if I was fully, kind of cognizant of this decision as a teenager when I decided, that my persona would be a deer. But I think for me, it's kind of an inversion of this, like, central PA, like, idea of masculinity, of hunting a deer and killing it as this idea of dominance. And I was like afraid to play football, as a kid, and an adult. So for me, like, becoming the deer, I think, is this kind of like way of inverting that, or subverting that relationship of like saying like, oh, you, the hunter, this masculine guy, you want the deer. Well, like, now I'm the deer, and turning myself, kind of turning that into a relationship of like desire. And then now also as an artist and an adult, I think to me, the deer takes on new significance as this, animal that is shot and hunted, and, that is, as a citizen of the United States, with a mass epidemic of shootings, that becomes a new context for me to kind of lean into, feeling again sort of this hunted animal. And that's something that I was thinking about going into these works that went into this exhibition is there's a lot of kind of ruminating on kind of all these different ways in which, I, as a person alive today and aware of so many crises happening around, have these kind of ruminations on death or destruction. And so that kind of feeds into a lot of the pieces in the show.
Absolutely. It is such a fascinating approach to such an interesting subject, and I'm so excited for this exhibition. Thank you so much, Tommy and Michael, for this short talk. Tommy, would you please tell us when the exhibition will open and for how long it will stay and all this?
Sure. So the exhibition is going to open on April 18th Saturday after next. And the opening will be from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Second Life time. The exhibition should be open for the next 2 months after that. But at the opening, we're going to be having some music. We have kind of a social space. I'll be there, and I'll be live streaming the event out to kind of a larger audience as well. But I'll be happy to kind of see anybody there, and we're inviting the furry community and Second Life community and hopefully the art community out to the event. Smoopa, do you want to add anything?
Just that everyone is welcome, no matter if you're a furry or a airplane avatar, I don't know, anything. Everyone's allowed. This is a space for Tommy's work and for everyone to, be in discussion with it.
Yeah, and I guess I'll also add that just be on the lookout for additional programming with the show. I know we're interested in having, a Q&A session, potentially a walkthrough of the show, talking about each of the works. And I know I do also have plans to do a live performance at the last show before the real world became dangerous to be in. And I may try to figure out a way to do some sort of live stream performance here as well. We'll see. So be on the lookout, and we hope to see you at the exhibition.
Yay. And please stay home. It's serious. It's for real. Stay home.
Yeah. Stay home. Come here.
Wash your hands.
Exactly. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands before you touch your keyboard, please.
Yes, and don't believe fake news. Oh my God, so many advices. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.